go? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just play the first
All
one.
right.
Okay, so the first question is, where would you hear your first cadence or ending point? Whole note?
Yeah.
On that F.
On the very first whole note? The problem is, yeah, you could, but you'd be looking at two measure phrases. That's a little short. That's almost like a sentence fragment or something. You know, it's a little bit too short to say that's a phrase. Now, you could see four phrases here and talk about it that way, but I think it's actually, you kind of want to take the longer view in this case. So really think. That's where we end. And then. Yeah, well, wait a minute though. So at the end of that first phrase, which is the first four measures, what kind of a cadence would you imagine would be there? A half cadence, right? Because the note D or re is going to be harmonized by some sort of 5 chord, right? So you would probably end up, right? And then you go on to. Actually, I did not play a perfect authentic cadence there, Tia. But you really don't know from the melody that that would be a perfect authentic cadence, but you can assume that probably at the end you might do something like. Right, and do a perfect authentic cadence there. So the first phrase ends with a half cadence. You know, you would think of it as. So our first phrase of this melody goes like this, and ends with a half cadence. And then the next phrase of the melody goes like this. And we're just going to, again, pretend it's a perfect authentic cadence.
Although it isn't imperfect, right?
Well, we don't know, because we don't know what harmonies are supporting that melody.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Oh.
if we harmonized it from below and wrote a root position 5/7 for those last two Ds, you know, I'm playing it an octave higher, but you know, if we did like 1 6 4 5 7 to root position 1, then that would be a perfect authentic cadence.
Oh.
Now it could be that it was just 1 5 6 5 or 5 6, and that would be an imperfect authentic cadence.
Hmm.
But it would still sound more complete than our half cadence at the end of the first
Okay.
one, right?
So we're not assuming that that's our bass note in the melody.
Yeah, just because it's in bass, we're not assuming that. Although again, it could be that, and in that case, yeah, we'd be stuck in the imperfect authentic cadence. Together, those two would form a period, and the period would be, Nectarine,
I'm sorry, what?
would that be a parallel or a contrasting period? You said it earlier. Yeah, this one.
This parallel.
It'd be parallel, right? Because the melodies are really similar up until the end. You know, the first, that much is similar, and then that first note of the third and the seventh measure is similar. Then we get a little bit different. But they would be considered parallel because they're similar enough to sound parallel, sound the same. Yeah, so it'd be a parallel period.
If you, on the second phrase, threw in, let's say, passing notes in between, or if you just had non-chord tones going on in between, would you still consider it parallel?
Yeah, that's, you know, often if you ornamented that, you know, that second time through, if you did some, you know, yeah, and then did something with the F, you know, then it would still be considered parallel because it had the same structure as the first one. It does kind of depend on how freely you ornament it, you know, how far out you get.
But
But
if
if
we
it's an
maintain
ornamented
this
version of the original one, yes, then you would call it parallel. Yeah. Okay, let's look at the next one. And bear in mind we have to take into account the first and second endings on this one. get to the pickup. So what kind of a cadence would you imagine there at the end of the first ending?
It's 5-1.
Well, I would probably.
Sorry, it's a 1-5.
You know, you could do it that way. You could do the A as 1. I was actually thinking more like before that you would do, so for the measure before you would do that little G, A, and B flat as part of the 5, and then go back to 1, and just do 1 for the whole measure, which would also work. But either way, the tonic is not in the soprano, right? Those two notes, A and C, are the 3rd and the 5th of the tonic triad, but they are not the tonic of the tonic triad, or not the tonic of the key. So either way, you are not ending up with the tonic in the soprano, so that would be an imperfect authentic cadence at that point. And then the last part, the second ending, you would probably harmonize that just as 5, or as 1, 5. And that would be, again, our perfect authentic cadence. Again, we're imagining, but probably we're there with a perfect authentic cadence. So this would be another parallel period, right? Because we have two phrases. This time, what did I say? Oh, well, I thought it was an imperfect authentic cadence. Steve thought it was a half cadence. Either one is fine. The point is it ends incompletely. And then comes back to, again, what we're imagining is a perfect authentic cadence. That forms a period, and it's parallel because the music is very similar from one phrase to the next. That makes sense. In fact, it's got a first and second ending, so the first two measures are exactly alike in both cases. They're used them. All right, any questions? Steve?
For some reason, I have a memory that it described parallel and contrasting with having to do with the beginning of the piece versus the end of the piece. Like one, the beginning of the piece was similar, and the other, the end of the piece. Does that sound familiar at all? Let's see if I can find it.
See if you can find it, but it should be that the beginnings are similar. The end
I might be confusing it with another thing.
would not be so much of a factor.
Okay.
All right, well, let me just, you look it up and I'll go on to the next melody. Okay.
This one's parallel, right?
Yeah, this one's parallel, yeah. So this one, I'm gonna play it up and on. Yeah, but first of all, we have two phrases, right? So, that would be my first resting point on the F. And what kind of a cadence would you imagine there?
An
Like
authentic
what kind of a chord would you harmonize it with?
with a 5.
5, yeah. We're in the key of E, and that's F sharp, which would be part of the dominant triad. So I'd probably harmonize that with a 5 chord. And then after that is our next phrase. Which comes back to tonic, right? So we have two phrases, one ending half cadence, another ending authentic cadence of some sort. We would imagine. And the two phrases, are they alike or are they unalike?
Unalike, there's no
Unalike.
contrast.
So they would be contrasting. So this would be another period. We would probably, we would put it this way. We would say at the end of the first phrase, we have a half cadence. The second phrase, again, we're imagining some sort of perfect authentic cadence. Those two phrases would form a period, but this would be a contrasting period because the melodic material is different, significantly different in both. And you can hear that. All right, everybody okay? All right, let's go on to the next one. Let's go on to 218.